Coming up, it's in about 8 minutes to 7 now. In just 2 weeks' time, tens of thousands of workers could face six-figure tax bills, which many will struggle to pay. They've been told by the taxman, HMRC, that if they don't agree repayment terms by the end of August, they'll face what are called loan charges to recoup underpaid tax from freelancers and agency workers who were paid via loans they were told never needed to be repaid. Well, many MPs are unhappy about this and say the charges are unfair. Here to explain it all is our economics correspondent, Andy Verity. Why is the HMRC introducing these charges?
Well, morning, Nick. HMRC says that from 1999 until recently, around 50,000 people joined schemes which it calls disguised remuneration, where typically an employment agency diverts their pay to an offshore trust and the trust pays them in loans taxed at 1% to 2% or less, which, as you say, don't need repaying. Now, in 2016, George Osborne introduced the loan charge to reclaim tax that Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs says has been avoided on those loans. And last year, those affected got letters saying they had to add up all the income from the loans, going back to 1999, and make an offer to pay tax on them. They have to get HMRC's agreement by the end of August. Otherwise, the loan charge would need to be paid in January at tax rates of up to 45%. That's often a six-figure sum, Nick, far in excess of people's incomes.
And 260 MPs, more I think, in fact, have raised concerns about this, and they're particularly concerned about the timing of the bill.
Yeah, that's right, because normally the taxman has to open an inquiry into your taxes within 4 years, and tax barristers say these loan charges are different because they can be applied to income dating back 20 years, which can mean huge repayments which can't be challenged at a tax tribunal. MPs have criticised the letters being sent to people asking them to settle their bills. It tells them they've been involved in tax avoidance and encourages people to settle their taxes and reminds them it's the law. But more than 150 MPs on an all-party group say it's too heavy-handed. Many people aren't at all wealthy, some nurses, social workers, and it's putting people under too much pressure. I've been speaking to Gail, whose father had one of the letters and became convinced he would either go to prison or lose his home. Now, he took his own life last year and mentioned the loan charge in the letter he left. This is what Gail told me.
He was the loveliest gentleman you would ever meet. Caring, selfless. He worked so hard, and he was honest. And he took his life because of the impact the loan charge had on him. He couldn't deal with the shame, the stigma. He thought he was a criminal.
Can you help people understand why people might get to such a dark place as a result of what is essentially a tax bill?
For Dad, it was the waiting, the not knowing the outcome, if it would ever end. It was the shame.
Why did he feel shame?
Because to him, he'd broken the law. In letters, it says it's the law. He truly believed that he was a criminal. He spoke about going to prison. It wasn't the fact that he would have to go to prison and go through that. It was the effect it would have on us and the shame and the stigma. He believed he was a criminal, and he wasn't. The impact the loan charges had on my father's mental health, I just don't think he could see any light at the end of the tunnel at all.
How do you know that it was the loan charge that contributed?
He wrote a very long letter and said, I'm currently involved in a settlement scheme for income tax avoidance known as contractor loan settlements. I'm so sorry, but I just can't take it anymore. Sorry. He didn't need to feel ashamed or like a criminal or that there was no way out. There was a way out. It's so real. We are reading the words of my dad, and he was indestructible. He really was. If someone would just listen and make a change, halt it, just don't remain silent.
That was Gail talking to our economics correspondent, Andy Verity. Now, if you're concerned about the issue, you can go to the BBC Action Line. Time now is 17 minutes to 9. Should Parliament change the law retrospectively to save tens of thousands of people from facing tax bills of tens of thousands of pounds? Earlier we heard from Gail, whose father took his own life last year, mentioning the loan charge in the letter which he left.
He couldn't deal with the shame, the stigma. He thought he was a criminal. I just don't think he could see any light at the end of the tunnel at all. He didn't need to feel ashamed or like a criminal or that there was no way out. There was a way out. If someone would just listen and make a change, halt it, just don't remain silent.
Listening to that, one of the MPs who is proposing a change in the law, Iain Duncan Smith, and also the Tax Policy Director at the Chartered Institute of Taxation, John Cullinane. Morning to you both.
Morning.
Mr. Duncan Smith, first of all, you heard the MPs on the committee, many harrowing cases of people traumatised by the debts they owe.
It's the same in my constituency, Nick. We have lots of people who have come to me in desperation, whose families are appalled. These are decent people who started businesses, some who were working even in the health service. These are decent people who did what they believed to be right. This was checked with HMRC. HMRC at no point over this period ever said that this should not be, they should not undertake this, that they were going to move against these schemes. They were people doing a decent thing. And then what's happened is HMRC's looked at this with the government and said, oh, I tell you what we can do. We can make a grab a whole load of money. That will help us out, 3.2 billion. Well, because this scheme was going on for a while, I tell you what we'll do. We'll just grab all the money that they made off the back of that and say this was tax avoidance, which shouldn't have been done. The Chancellor himself admitted in front of the committee that it was avoidance, not evasion. It's not illegal. And the reality is, I'll be quite frank with you, I'm ashamed of my government as politicians having allowed this to go ahead, and it's time they acted so that we don't end up with cases like Gail's any longer. That's the key damage that's going on.
Let's put that to John Cullinane of the Chartered Institute of Taxation. So is Mr. Duncan Smith right to describe this as a sort of tax grab?
Well, I think it did take further a trend, really, that's been going on for the last 10 to 15 years. And I think, frankly, the difference really was the credit crunch and the change in public attitudes that took place as a result of that towards tax avoidance, which, of course, is legal. That's the distinction with tax evasion. But the political view that developed, and this is very widespread in public opinion, the media, and politicians generally, was that avoidance had gone too far, was treated too much as a game, and had to be stopped, and that people should not be allowed to keep the benefit of tax avoidance.
So do you think the HMRC are making an example of these people?
This charge was introduced by Parliament. It followed on from the 2016 budget proposals. It came in 2019. There was plenty of opportunity for parliamentary scrutiny ahead of time. It was voted through, it was voted through to apply for all that time, and the reasoning behind it